is a new alumna group that seeks to help entrepreneurs build relationships. Our goal is to provide a context for relationship building through an educational program that has already begun and a website that will be scheduled to launch in the coming weeks. We aim to make VNet as responsive as possible to the specific needs and concerns of our fellow alumna business owners across industries and at various stages of business development. But in these beginning events and sporadically thereafter, we also want to acquaint you with exceptional entrepreneurs and provide you with an opportunity to listen to their compelling stories, which brings us to this evening. This evening, Eva Jeanbart-Lorenzotti, the founder of Voyager Spirits Inc., will discuss disruptive innovation and the evolution of her lifestyle brand in conversation with journalist Alexis Gelber. Eva Lorenzotti is an exceptional innovator who combines a highly developed and sophisticated aesthetic sense with a keen business mind and a passion that has been a very consequential driver of her success. In the late 1990s, Eva Lorenzotti launched Vivre, the first editorial catalog. Mixing content with product to create a unique customer experience, the magalog has since been followed by countless publications. Eva was then among the first to bring the concept of the magalog to the web. So to give you an example of the concept at work, currently on her e-commerce site Vivre, a beautiful selection of leather guest books and journals appears next to the Oscar Wilde quote, "It is what you read when you don't have to that determines what you will be when you can't help it." Today we hear the word curator used in many different contexts, but Eva was a pioneer in taking the word out of museums and art galleries and placing it squarely in the retail environment. Eva combines a strong editorial point of view with a keen understanding of her luxury goods customer. She surveys the vast world of global clothes, jewelry, and accessories for the home and tailors it to highly discerning tastes. Time magazine has called her the mail order magnet. Eva was also at the forefront of the artisanal movement, including photos and backstories of sometimes little-known jewelers and other designers whose work she champions on the pages of Vivre. Eva's reach as an innovator extends to the development of her own personal brand, otherwise known as the art of reinvention. She's consulted with multinational companies to develop store concepts. She's launched more than a dozen lines for the home shopping network under the V by Eva label, served as spokesperson for Blackberry, and most recently collaborated with New York & Company by designing a capsule collection for them. Finally, for now, there are also facts about Eva as a businesswoman, with the emphasis on woman, that might not go so far as fly in the face of convention, but are still very noteworthy. In a working environment where there can still be a very precarious relationship between a woman who dresses noticeably well and perceptions about her intelligence and seriousness, Eva has appeared both on Vogue's list of most stylish women and Crain's list of 40 under 40 rising business stars in New York. In March of this year, the Wall Street Journal published an article on women in mentorship titled "Tyranny of the Queen Bee Women," with the caption that proclaimed, "Something is amiss in the professional sisterhood." Eva, in turn, has been quoted as saying she is all over talent when she finds it, and consistently champions mentorship, most publicly as a mentor on Lifetime's primetime hit, Project Accessory. A mother of a grown daughter and a young son, Eva has a broad perspective on work-life balance that is very much her own. The other participant in this evening's conversation, Alexis Gelber, is a very prestigious journalist. Alexis is an adjunct professor at the Arthur L. Carter Journalism Institute at NYU. A longtime top editor at Newsweek, Alexis supervised award-winning coverage of politics, social issues, and international news as the magazine's national affairs editor, assistant managing editor, and as the managing editor of Newsweek International. As director of special projects from 2001 to 2008, she created a special issue in new entrepreneurial projects, among them Leadership for the 21st Century, which included the magazine's signature Women in Leadership Issues and Conferences. In 2009, Alexis became book editor of The Daily Beast, launching the site's section of book reviews and excerpts, interviews, and photo galleries. She was a fellow at Harvard Business School Shorenstein Center in spring 2011, and where she published a research paper on women politicians and social media, titled Digital Divas, Women, Politics, and the Social Network. She was the editor-director of The Human Face of Big Data, a book and multimedia project published in December 2012, and is a consulting editor of Fortune, where she is editing a book for publication in September 2013 based on the magazine's 40 Under 40 series about young business leaders. Please welcome Eva Jeanbart-Lorenzotti and Alexis Gelber.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here tonight. It's wonderful to be back at Barnard, and I'm particularly happy to be here at this group because I think the words Barnard and entrepreneur should go together. Those are two words that are very meaningful, and I think that they can give each other strength. And I'm very happy tonight to be able to talk with Eva, who has just been an extraordinarily accomplished woman and has brought distinction to everything that she has been involved with. So I wanted...
So happy to be here. I don't feel like a woman. I still feel like you got all the energy inside to keep going. You know, I don't mean it that way, but I mean it like in the sense that I joke that I'm still a Toys R Us kid. You know, the unstoppable. You have to kind of keep wanting it every day. But I love being here. I actually love being in this building. It's so amazing. And you know that famous quote that I always think about, what is it, education's lost on the or something? I so believe that. Like my only dream right now is just to unplug everything and be able to spend a year in school. Just learning again, because I just think there's nothing better when you can, learn with a mind that's different, right? With a mind that's open, right? With a mind that's open to all. I was talking to somebody today actually. That was a little sideways.
That's okay.
I was talking to somebody today who is a very intelligent man, and he was saying, we were talking about something, and I said, what's really funny in life is that all the information you need is always in between the lines, right? It's never sort of what is said. It's always what's not said. It's always what people don't see. It's always what you deduce. It's always what, so, the idea that life can be all like this and you can get to the right answer is okay. I mean, a straight line doesn't usually work. Right. So, sidebar, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, thank you for having me. Christine, thank you for everything. You've been unbelievable. You've been amazing and tenacious. And
it's a pleasure to have you here.
So we may be seeing some slides of Eva's work as the talk goes on, and if at any point she wants to stop, she will, but this is basically for you to sort of see the kind of some of the things that she's been involved with. So Eva, let's start by talking about when the light bulb went off. When did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur? Because you began your career in...
When I realized how ignorant I was. I began my career, so I left Barnard, and my dream was to come to America, right? That was my big dream, and I had to negotiate to come to Barnard because I was originally not allowed to come to New York, the city. So part of my constant negotiation anyway, and I came here and then I wanted so badly to stay, and I studied actually when I was at Barnard, I studied political science and economics, which has clearly nothing to do with anything I've done. And so I thought I had to get the right job, and at the time the only right possible job was investment banking, so I went to work for Vogue. And I guess I only went to work there because they said you were going to get in, so I had to then figure out how do I get in. I don't know why it's skipping. Is it doing it by itself? Does it matter?
I think so.
So then I left because after working like mad and kind of enjoying it and still kind of thinking about those moments and how much I learned, I realized that I wanted to create something. I didn't know what. And I kind of went off and sort of said, and I remember like what was my light bulb moment, not so much about being an entrepreneur, but I was not having been brought up in America, catalogs were a very strange thing for me. And at the same time, I kept looking at Tiffany, because Tiffany was like kind of this model for me, because I grew up thinking Tiffany was just like this blue box dreams, and you could walk out and turn into a grand princess, like what we're seeing in the print, actually in the press right now. All these articles about trying to bring back those moments. And then luxury wasn't a very big subject, but to me luxury was a very different thing than what luxury became, and I was ignorant enough to think, let's put them together. So I convinced somebody to hire me as a consultant. I probably still say consultant to people who don't have a job, so I was a jobless person. And I just didn't think anything was impossible. So, and today, so I guess maybe that's when, at the time I didn't think I was an entrepreneur. And I think I didn't think I was an entrepreneur for a long time until I realized the way my mind works is so different. You know, I'm working on a project right now, which is part of Can You Reinvent Yourself? And I was saying to somebody, like, it's going to happen. For me, it's clear it's going to happen. How, I don't know, but it's going to happen. You're asking me when it's going to happen. I can't answer it. To me, it's obvious it will. So I think the entrepreneur part is just knowing somehow, some way. I don't know what's giving you the faith in your belly and not sort of making you sleep at night or not sleep at night, but you just know it's going to happen.
So how
Is that
do you?
a long answer?
Yeah, no, it's a good answer. How did you figure out whether Vivre was going to be a feasible venture? What made you think, and what kind of research did you do?
I mean, you know, the funny story is now that I look back on it, you know, nothing that I did made it feel like it was feasible, right? I got hung up on every other minute, you know, saying which part of this conversation do you not understand? The word no is only, you know, it's N-O, you have to understand it. Please don't call again, call again. And I did some market research, which is true. I went around to, I remember Atlanta and a couple of other places, and I had this woman in the room saying, would you buy beautiful things from the catalog? So yes, I mean, if I were to do that today, I would say what I did was a joke. I mean, I spent months and months working on some kind of big document that actually meant nothing. And I got turned down by everybody except for 2 brands. And I literally went and set up my own warehouse. And, you know, it is that real kitchen table story. I mean, that was that real kitchen table. I guess I got a break when I got lucky. And I think luck, you know, what did somebody say to me yesterday? Luck is for those who come prepared or something like that. So maybe I was a little prepared, but I was out one day, and I have a rule, which I'll share with you, which is always return a phone call and always take a first meeting, because you never know what's going to end up. I get a phone call, and this friend of mine says to me, you're in a catalog business, are you? And I'm like, yeah, of course I am. You know, meanwhile, I've got, you know, 2 pennies and 2 brands to rub together, right? Something like that. And he goes, because American Express is looking, you know, to get out of the direct marketing business and actually give it to somebody. I said, great. So, you know, little me shows up, you know, and talks the talk, and the talk worked. So don't ask me how it happened, but I got entirely American Express's direct mail business. Now, what that did for my business is that all the people that kept hanging up, all of a sudden I was Amex, and I had, you know, all of this customer database that they wanted. So things began to change. American Express didn't know that I had not, you know, so for 8 years, every single book that came out of American Express was co-signed between me and Ed Kelly. Ed Kelly's a big, important person, and I'm this, you know, little, and I think maybe that was the turning point to everything could be possible. And it just, you know, started like that. And interestingly enough, I think that as an entrepreneur, probably the entrepreneurial part of me is that we don't think about the risks, we only think about the rewards. And then the risks start to happen, right? So, and I think that the word that ignorance is bliss is really true. So I'll tell you another story which is part of that. So one day, a couple of years after that, a guy who's friends with a friend of mine says, can I come and see you, talk to you about something? And I say, sure. He kind of comes in, who's from McKinsey. Very serious consultant, probably done. He's like, I want to create a catalog for the poetry business. So I spent the last basically 2 hours telling him that there's why would he want to create a catalog? I mean, it's the craziest business. You can't project, cost a lot, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, 3 hours of this. And then he gets up and he says, I'm going down to a meeting with a company called Vivre. No? Can I use your card? And I said, sure. But if you use my card, you owe me consulting costs, right? Deal, right? He leaves. He leaves. I never hear from him for like 6 months. After 6 months, he calls me. And he says, hey, guess what? I owe you consulting hours. I said, is this a joke? Like, no one's ever paid up, you know? Anyway, so he comes over. He quit his job. He decided not to go for that business. And we ended up working together. And that's when we packaged the company. And within like 3 months, it got sold to the VC moment, you know, the dot-com bubble era, when we all thought like we're going to be the next big thing. Well, the next big nothing, you know? So, you know, there's all these things that happen. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that none of this to me was ever risk. Today, right, 15 years later, I have a almost 17-year-old 2 years, and I redo things, and I rethink things, because I think that all the things that can go wrong versus all the reasons to go right, right? So, listen, I fundamentally believe that most, 99% of, if you take 100, 99 people will not see what you're seeing, and all it takes is that one thing for you to see what you're seeing. And that's what makes it groundbreaking, that's what makes it different, and that's what makes it be what you want it to be.
Tell us about the first team you put together, Vivre. Who did you hire? How did that all go? What sort of team did you manage to assemble?
So I assembled whatever I could get at the beginning. I mean, honestly, you're sitting there and, I never raised money for my business. I literally started on my own, and the first sort of phase of it. And so I basically started working with European interns to start, from great business schools. And then I think my first, another really funny story, life is filled with stories. You gotta just take chances, trust me. It really happens. I go and have a meeting, and I'll never forget this, with Scully and Scully. So Scully and Scully in the past. So they've had a catalog business for a long time. So a big part of it was how could you partner with people to get their lists and steal their customers. Anyway, I'm joking, but so I go into this little tiny office, and there's this woman behind the desk, very, very proper, very dressed up, the bow, the thing, the glasses, and on the corner of the office, and the office is literally like this size, is me in a corner trying to sell my goods, because that's what I was. I was just like a walking, talking salesperson. Everywhere I go, I try. And Mr. Scully, and trying to talk to him, and obviously, I think everything I said he just couldn't relate to, but she sent me this amazing letter. And she sent me such an amazing letter that I said we have to go to lunch. So we went to lunch, but she quit her job. She went on vacation. And I called her and I said, I've got an opportunity. You've got to come. Anyway, so she came. She ended up being with me for 13 years. She ran their whole operation, was working at Smithsonian. She was the beginning, and then I got somebody from HarperCollins to be in a production business. And, then it started, and then it got so, tons of very big, important people, great ones, But at the beginning, it was very much like that. And it was just like the first group that worked with me, I think had been with me for 15 years. It's like family. It's like, I don't know what it is like. And that's good and bad, because I don't, in my new business, I don't have that attachment, right? Every time I start something new, it's more like, okay, build a team, who's the right person, let's go do it. Same attitude, but different style, I guess.
Right. Now, so it's one thing to sort of come up with the idea, to start it, and to create a team, but then it's another thing to grow the business, to scale the business. And how did you go about doing that?
Making a ton of mistakes. I don't know. I did lots of different things. I think that some of the things that I did was I wanted to be big. I always wanted to be big. It wasn't a project for me. Right? It was never like, I was never proud of my work. I was never sort of, oh, this has been a great year, or this has been a great project. This has been, it was just sort of like, that they were proud. I always used to say, I have a sign on the door saying that they were happy with our work, and also have the sign saying, gone fishing, or just go on vacation, right? It's like you can't pat your own horse. So I guess growth and sort of being everywhere and was a big part of it. I sold my company Voyager.com, so all of a sudden we went from, cozy little tiny office, 11,000 square feet, 140 people, and the whole thing. And that was like a moment, and boom, crash, everything wiped out. Start to build again. But then you learn that you have to scale, because all of a sudden, it's sort of like, you're walking and suddenly you learn how to take a Vespa, next thing you know you're driving a car, and you're liking that car, and you're asking me to walk again, I can't walk again, right? So I think that there's a lot of things that you learn in scaling, and I think the biggest thing for an entrepreneur to learn is to step away, and to learn to let other people get in front of you, and that, what you're really good at is maybe one thing, but they're maybe really good at something else. And I think that's a lesson that takes time, and it's not just about being an entrepreneur. I think it also takes, maturity. I still don't have it, but getting there. Maturity to sort of just say, it's okay. Like, I don't, and then there's a side where there's certain things that, because you're a visionary, you don't want to let go of. And I actually think sometimes I defend myself saying, well, I tried, but then I think it's a good thing that I don't. Like, I always had my eye on the creative. I would look at every single page before it went out and tweak to the thing. I mean, I'd be sitting there for hours. And now, people say, well, why would you do that? I said, because that's why it looks the way it looks. And then I think about people like Jobs and a lot of people who, what is it? Jean-Michel Franck has this great saying that says perfection is measured in millimeters and not centimeters. Not that we're going for perfection, but the tiny little details in life is what makes it different between good to great. So you just need to figure out what it is that you can really bring great to, and what it is you can't bring great to. And whatever you cannot bring great to, let somebody else do it. Right? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that's a great lesson. Great lesson. Now, you were talking about sitting in the back of Scully and selling your stuff. And in a larger sense, how do you sell something? How do you get people to make that transaction?
Well, the first way to sell something is, for me, not to be selling it, right? So to be passionate, to be present, to care, to listen, and to be so into what you're doing that the person is going to stop thinking that you're trying to sell them. They're going to get into what you're saying. So I think it's really, really important that you learn how to do that, and then you realize that the best way to sell is to love what you do. And I think that's really, really true. I mean, it's been true for me and everything I've done. I mean, I think I can sell anything to anybody if I'm into it, right? If I'm not into it, I'm not. And you have to be prepared to take no as an answer. And I always say, look, if the worst answer anybody's going to give us in life is no, it's fine, we know it. Heard it before, I'll hear it again, I can handle it. Give me no's, let's go. And it's like, so who cares? So get up the next morning and keep going. And so I think you have to be okay with getting no as an answer. You have to realize that no is an answer today, but it might not be an answer tomorrow. And you have to also realize that if you're going to do that, there's going to be no's, right? So you're just going to go and give the best case for what it is. And also, what I think is really important when you are selling something is you should know the other person. So if you don't know the other person, try to understand their business, try to understand really why, and try to sort of explain to them in a way without telling them, right? Because telling people things is really annoying. Sort of explain to them, why you think that, the two of you should come together and come together and do whatever it is that you want to do with them, right?
Yeah. You told me a great story about Tom's shoes, which I would love for you to share with the group here today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I would say so many of the things that I did at Vivre were completely breaking convention, right? So broke every rule there is in the book. From the paper it was printed on, to the fact that, the catalog business goes like this, Eva, do you understand? If not, you're going to be out of business very soon, right? You have to have very inexpensive paper, very inexpensive product, and 70%, 80% of your book has to be pickup, and 20% has to be a repeat, and 20% has to be new. If not, you will fail. We were very expensive paper, 100% new, you name it. I mean, everything that was not supposed to work, right? Before the book went out the door, the postage cost, would kill us, right? Meanwhile, we had record numbers. We were doing $30 to $40 a book when the industry average was $7, So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I do what I love. So if somebody came in and said to me, and there are millions of Tom stories, I have this product and I'm doing it because I love it, and I fell in love with the idea. Tom shoes, which you all know about when he came, I just loved his idea. It wasn't espadrilles, but espadrilles were ugly. And besides the fact that I grew up in Europe, and you buy them for 10 francs, 10 French francs, which is, by the way, not even $2 at the markets, and you can still get them today in every color, and his weren't even the good version of that, right? With the whole thing. But he said to me, I want everybody to walk with shoes in their feet. And that, to me, was a story worth telling. Just in the same way, we have millions of stories like this. I mean, and the book was filled, and I think that taking those risks and not caring if you actually sell one item, but just doing it for the hell of it because you believe in it, kind of creates differentiation. And I remember people used to always say to us, your pages are up on my thing. So you're the elephant, I'm the ant. Can we not have that happen, And so it's like, in a funny way, it's that, and I used to laugh because Neiman would say, we're going to look at, we look at what you do, and I said, well, The good news is that catch me if you can, because I changed my mind all the time. You know, every season was a different thing, and every moment was a different moment. So there was no formula. This was a whole curated thing, but even if we look at this, I mean, I can tell you, this is, by the way, this page is from 1998. So I don't know if I'm really buying this stuff, but I probably wear it all today. This brand, for example, which is Nancy Gonzalez, I was her very first client, and today, I put on the map, created that back for them, amongst other ones. Renee Calvilla, probably the most talented shoemaker in the world outside of Venice. I mean, unbelievable. It's like the jewelry of shoes. It's like the Renee Calvilla. I mean, absolutely. He creates a 3D paper sculpture out of each one of his shoes. You go to his factory and you just want to die. You know, because it's right outside of Venice. It's worth the trip if you ever want to go. I mean, it is just like unbelievable. Some fun stuff, lots of beads, lots of stuff. But anyway, some more pages. You can tell, I mean, the variety of things. These were plates done by incredible artists. I mean, you know, it's just breaking the rules, I think, is so much what we did. We created this other issue of Vivre, which is called Voyager. And convinced Blackstone, that owned a ton of hotels, that wanted an in-room magazine. So usually the way in-room magazines work is they go to, you know, a company like Comcast, of course, big important companies, and they pay a fee, and that company goes and creates what they call custom publishing work for them. And instead we created the real sort of beat, so really the point of view, except that we embedded in it hidden content, of which some of it was about their hotels. So this, for example, was about one of their hotels that they own in Puerto Rico. But we sort of did that, and we talked about the drinks and the Puerto Rico lifestyle, and we put together the clothes that you want and the whole thing. So it created something that was completely different. And whenever I had a project like this, for example, that I couldn't get my team to do because my team would be fed up with me because every issue would have to be a different issue next time. Right? I would create these, what I would call my underground projects. So I would bring my underground teams, and I would work in a silo by myself, like a crazy person with my underground teams, and I would put it together. And then once they could see it, then they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, now I'll take it over. So, you know, accepting all these things is a big part of it.
So you're clearly a visionary, but you're also, you know, you have your finger on the pulse of something that people are ready for. So what kinds of trends in the marketplace have given you an edge? What kinds of economic changes, social changes, lifestyle changes have
it's funny because I was talking to somebody the other day who said something that I hadn't thought about, which I thought was really, really interesting. He said, you know, business is like a wave. You know, you can either be right on it and you can ride it in, or you can be ahead of it, or you can be behind it. In a funny way, I think I was ahead of it. You know, I think Vivre was before its time. If Vivre was today, like what it was, it would be really like so relevant, right? And I think we were precocious and we led the way for many people. So the question comes of how do you reinvent it? Because the last thing I want to be is a follower. I can't do that. And I don't believe that. I don't necessarily believe that scale has to be like when you scale in retail, you start to change your business model, right? So understanding what are the changes that you're willing to make and what are the changes that you're not willing to make. So I think that there were many trends that were to my favor. I mean, first of all, we went from luxury being a completely irrelevant subject in America when I started, right? Irrelevant. Most of the brands I've dealt with had 0 stores in America. There was no consolidation in the industry. People didn't talk about luxury a lot. So we went from that to a huge boom in the industry, huge growth. People who had 1 store would have 25. People who had 0 had 10. You know, big conglomerates like Riskreward, VMH, all that became big power players. You had, you know, people emerging in this country, whether it be, you know, Andrew Rosen or any of these people building brands and buying brands and cultivating brands and doing retail. Somebody like Mickey Drexler came and took a a brand like J. Crew and turned it into an iconic big, et cetera, and consumption and doing things well and merchandising and quality and detail, and all of a sudden became a big thing. So definitely, right? And then obviously there was the digital world, which was complicated because what was complicated about it was not the industry, it's the functionality. So what I mean by that is you can do anything you want to do, but if you also have to change consumer behavior, then it doesn't matter what you're doing. You may not get there. So you may have the right answer, but if you have to convince somebody to do something differently as the first part of it, it's not that your answer is wrong, it's just that your timing is wrong. And I think that the whole initial sort of .com moment had nothing to do with the .com. It had to do that people weren't ready. They just weren't ready. So nobody focused on the fact that it would take 10, 15 years, or today it's a non-subject of conversation. It's like, it's the way people live. Maybe even less than our children. I don't think our children will walk to stores. I don't think we will. Yet I think stores are very important. So what's the future of that? I don't know, but there is a big future.
So you were very early in the digital space.
I was very early in the digital space, and it's funny because I like the digital space because to me I treat the digital space the same way I would treat paper or the same way I would treat anything else. But I don't inherently understand the digital space like other generations do. Do you know what I'm saying? So for me, it's not about the digital space that I'm succeeding in. It's about what I'm trying to do. Like, what is this story that I'm telling? And this is an amazing artist. This woman is an amazing artist from Australia, who does these pieces, and they're all painted by hand. But to me, this is a piece you keep forever. It's like a work of art that you have for yourself. This is Michael Kors, pre-Michael Kors being, handbag, and the amazing new designer, and all of this. And it's like about this whole lifestyle and these colors and these things that you can clash together, but that actually worked well. So it wasn't about the digital space, but it was about that.
So I want to just talk a little bit about Christina talked about your interest in mentorship. But I want to ask you who your role models and mentors were starting out.
I had, so many. In a sense that I gravitated to so many, people for advice. And there were a few people that I worked with who, always sort of, I always call them my mentors. Now they've been running big companies for a long time. Mickey was definitely one of them. I am president of Chaumet, I am president of Vuitton. I have so many different people, and they would always sort of, Prosper is one of my mentors. I have a lot of different mentors, and I always seek new mentors. And I think now, I love telling people stories. I love listening to people. I love asking them, questions and hearing what they have to say. And I think mentoring is so important. And I also think that the biggest thing about mentoring, anyway, was for me, and I'll never forget, I had a meeting with Howard Schultz about 10 years ago, and he told me his entire story.
The
CEO of Starbucks. And he saved me so many times because he had so many failures in his story, and the biggest one being the one right before he became a huge success, when he thought he was going to lose it all, 10 years after. And so many times when, as in my business, I felt like tomorrow was not going to happen, like tomorrow was going to be the end. I would go to bed and I'd think about him. And so I think one of the strong things about mentoring is to realize that you're not alone, to realize that what you're going through is part of the journey, to realize that it's not life or death, that you continue the footsteps, right? And I think that's really important. One of my mentors would always say to me, and I so practice this, and when I don't, I kill myself. I just stop myself. He would always say, work seriously without taking yourself seriously, right? And I would always say, the day I start taking myself seriously, shoot me, right? So whenever I feel that way, I'm like, I gotta get out of it. I gotta leave the office, or I gotta get out, I gotta do something. And that's why I joked on the Toys R Us kid. But I think that, I first of all, I'm a huge believer in people, and I'm a huge believer in talent. And I have, I think, one very basic philosophy is your success is not going to take away from mine. So I can applaud your success. And the fact that you're successful is not going to make my journey any shorter, any longer. The fact that you have money, you're not going to give it to me. So we're all on equal footing, and I want to be happy for you, and I want to praise you, and I want to tell people how great you are, and I want to tell people that they should meet you. So if you're a connector in life, I've connected so many people, I do that all the time. Sometimes people say to people, you doing that. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I will, but sometimes the karma comes around, goes around, right? So, you know, in life, telling a beautiful story about somebody for me is a beautiful story. I mean, I'm so passionate about so many people I've worked with, and all designers, and all their little tiny stories, and all their craziness, and almost losing a leg to do, I don't know what, climbing in a cupboard to find this plastic watch, and all of this type of stuff. I mean, to me, I really cherish those moments, and I think that, you know, my life would be as fun. You know, at the end of the day, my life would not be as fun. This is the American Express, like you know, I was talking about before. So these are what we call the pocket batteries, the good volume, platinum cup Centurion carbon first. And at the time, the company was called. So you see the difference is before we merged. So it was called Vivre. That's when I started. But of course, you can't even pronounce the name, the art of the name, right? And then when we did the .com thing, it became Vivre. And you know, had all the membership points and everything. And I have them in the office. I showed them to you, I think, didn't I? And they still look fresh. Yeah, it was like a long time ago. So, and it was Vivre.com, all our storytelling. So this was Juggle, right? First came out. It's like very much about storytelling and writing, and beauty is so much part of it. Because at the end of the day, there's something I think which is really important that people forget. Whatever it is that you're doing, at the end of the day, you want to surprise and delight people. I don't care what you're doing. You know, even if you're a doctor, you know, great bedside manners, a big smile. It's surprising. All of a sudden, your patient in front of you is like wants to eat out of your hands, right? So I think we forget that. We forget that surprise and delight is 90% of the reason that, you know, as humans, we get excited every day, we want to continue in a day. So to me, that's really like the most important thing in what I do, and pushing to always create that surprise and delight is very important.
So obviously one of the big subjects of the past several months has been Sheryl Sandberg's book, best-selling book, Lean In. I always thought that for Barnard women, that was sort of not a concept, but I wondered what you thought about her book and the kind of why there aren't more CEOs, people like you, on the pages of business magazines. Women busy CEOs.
You know why? I don't know. I mean, you know, I spent a lot of time being very frustrated by that. You know, frustrated because let me start by saying I'm not a feminist. I really don't believe in that, but I'm a huge woman lover, right? And I believe that women are, you know, to me, women and men are equal. I don't have to talk about it. The minute I have to justify myself, I lose my war, so I'm not going to talk about it, right? So that's my philosophy to start with. But I've been very frustrated by it because I think that, you know, what is it? What is it that's deterring? And I think that in a funny way, America is a very old-fashioned country, you know, with a very old-fashioned mentality, with a lot of stigma and a lot of rules, and as much as we cultivate intelligence and pride and you know, independence, we take it to one extreme or the other. But the idea that a woman can do it all is very foreign to America. Well, you can do it all. You can do it all. I don't care what they tell you. You can do it all, and you don't have to compromise. And if they don't like it, too bad for them. And it's a bold move, but it's not that bold. It's just, you know, sort of feeling that it's okay. And I think you need permission. So if I don't know if I have any right to permission, but I think it's a permission thing. I really believe that women just feel like they have to work so goddamn hard. They have to show off. They have to take care of the kids. They have to take them to school. They have to do this. They have to do that. So all of a sudden, it's like, give up, right? I'm gonna give up because I'm not gonna be able to take care of my kids properly, and I'm gonna get shit for it. Excuse my language, right? So this is what I have to do. So I'll go back to my career in 10 years. Well, life doesn't work out that way. You cannot go back to your career after 10 years. You can go and do something different, and that's very possible, but it's really hard. And then it's also hard to kind of think that you have to compete with a man every single day versus you're not having to think that way. So I guess I mean, I believe on the whole lean in thing, but I also believe in sort of not having to work that. You're going to have to work hard. It doesn't, in order to be somewhere, you're going to have to work hard regardless. But you don't have to work hard.
So how important do you think networking is for women entrepreneurs?
No, I said the other day, I don't believe in networking. Because it's a job, right? So when you're doing a job, it's not real. When it's not real, it's not going to work. It's hard work. So you have to, you have to figure out, you have to show up, you have to collect the cards, you have to follow up, and nobody cares because they got a lot of cards. And it's like email after email, and you say you're going to have lunch, and meanwhile 2 years later, you still haven't had lunch, you know? I mean, come on, right? How many times have you been in this movie? Bad movie. You don't want to watch that movie. Right? So I don't believe in networking. Now, having said that, let me just sort of reframe what I'm saying. Now, if you're in a particular industry and there's an industry event, then it's different because you're going to meet people in your industry and you have a subject matter to talk about. But if you're going to meet people out there, then you should go out there, meet people, be present, have a good time. And who knows, you may end up meeting one or two fabulous people. And that's the way I see it. So being present, being real, being interesting, being fun, saying, I don't have to leave at 6:30. I'm not here for 10 minutes while I'm running to the thing to get to the thing because I just said I'm going to go. Who knows? I might meet somebody. You know, go, have some drinks, have some fun, call it a night. If it works out great, great. If it doesn't work out great, who knows? You may end up at dinner downtown.
So what do you wish that somebody had told you early on that you know now?
Oh my God, I got a list like this. I don't know where to start right now. There's so many of them. I don't know. I mean, there's just so, God, you know. I mean, you know, one thing that I think that is really important is that when you start off, that when you're an entrepreneur, you know, you always think that somebody else can do it better, right? And because they can do it better. That's not true. So unless you're capable of doing it, don't think that, because what you do is you end up doing things that you don't know how to do or that somebody else tells you to do, and they're not necessarily your thing, and you let go of things and you don't pay attention to things you should be paying attention to. So that's not true. You know, it's like that's the reason I'm not into consulting, because people will tell you, it's very easy for me to come and tell you, this is all wrong with you, and then walk away. Right? Thanks. Fantastic. Right? But the real answer is, it's not what's wrong, it's like, how do we fix it, right? So it's one thing to fix it together. It's one thing to make it better together. It's another thing to talk about, you know, I can go and criticize almost any business if I want to, but have me actually go and do the work. So that's a big mistake I made. I wish people had told me. You know, I really believe that people with big resumes and big things really knew how to do it better. And I made some serious mistakes. Never take the title of vice chairman, by the way. It means nothing. Okay? It means absolutely nothing, you know. Excuse me one second. So I think there are so many things I've learned. I mean, so many things I've learned. I think I learn every day, and I think there's that great saying that I love: experience is the word for the mistakes we survive.
Mm-hmm. So what qualities, personal qualities do you think it takes to be an entrepreneur? And are those inborn, or are there things you learn through experience?
Passion, people, perseverance, patience, if you get all that right, you'll get profits. It takes certainly a lot of passion and a lot of perseverance, because let me tell you, it's, you know, the road is rocky. And that's what makes the journey so great. I mean, I know very few people that have had like sort of have created interesting things that have had a straight line. You know, I mean, Steve Jobs had this great line with his speech at Stanford, which I love. It's stay hungry, stay foolish, right? So what does that mean? You know, keep your hunger to do more, to change, to keep going, and stay foolish. And why? Because you have to keep taking risks. It doesn't matter. It doesn't get any easier. If you want to create a difference, you're going to have to keep taking risks. So that moment doesn't stop. It's not like, oh, okay, so now you're done. It's all gone. You can be done and preserved. You can do that. But if you want to keep growing, want to keep evolving, you're going to have to keep doing that stuff. And that stuff always, you know, takes that belly insanity, like, really? You know, it's great.
So let's.
As you can tell, I have a lot of,
No, absolutely, very inspiring. So, you know, I think this might be a good point to open it up to questions and turn this into more of a conversation. Yes?
Hi, Eva. So, just on the topic of disruptive innovation, is this working? It doesn't sound like you were intending to be disruptive. It just sounds like you were doing something that you thought you would like to see out there, and so you made it and you learned as you went along. And do you feel that it's so in order to be disruptive or to be a disruptor, do you think that that needs to be intentional?
no. I think when it's intentional, it doesn't work. I mean, I think people use, I think first of all, disruptive is a big word in Vogue right now. À la mode, right? You know, but what it means is doing things differently. What it means is breaking the usual, right? What it means is having a point of view which is unique. What it means is everybody's doing one thing, go the other way, right? So, or don't do it the way they're doing it. And don't care. I mean, for 7 years straight, I was being told by everybody in the catalog industry, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. And it was like a group of, old, men club, right? And I was like this young girl that, had to go home. I wasn't going home. So finally, 7 years later, we had lunch with the king of the kings. And I said to him, you've been telling me this for 7 years, now I'm firing you. And it was like, you know what? Enough. I don't want people telling me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me how to do it better. Tell me how to do it smarter. Right? So that's disruptive. Disruptive is not believing in the status quo. Disruptive is the road is like this, you're going to create the road like that. Disruptive is a word that we use to say think different. Think out loud. We're going to call it. Build it your way. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it is. I mean, it's like if you have two kids with Legos, right? One of them follows the book of instruction, the other one builds something completely different. So. Also, I think that holding on to words, I think it's about really having a vision. I don't care what your vision is, but having that vision. And you need a vision because today there's just so much of everything. Right? There's a ton of everything out there. So, but if you have your own, then nobody can compete with you because the reality of it is nobody's got your brain, nobody's got your style, nobody's got your DNA, nobody's got your way of moving and shaking and talking. So make it your own. And if you're not prepared to do that, then there's a big, long list of competition that's out there. Let me tell you, it's a tiring road because there's a lot more smart people than we've ever had before. For sure. And younger.
Yes.
Both as an entrepreneur myself and as somebody who, I'm a publicity strategist, and I've worked with a lot of visionary entrepreneurs and represented them, people who really have been quite disruptive in their industries and created new branches of industries. It's occurred to me that what other people might consider your flaws are every bit as important in what you create as what you're supposedly good at. And I'm wondering if that's something that, it took me a long time to embrace that.
Right.
And I'm wondering if that's something that you've ever thought about, or if there's particular things that would normally be seen as flaws that you do really well.
I said, right. I mean, I think a strong one is like, control freak, for example, right? People say control freaks don't let companies grow, control freaks don't. So that's what I was saying before. I mean, I have a side of me which is a huge control freak, right? But what I've learned is what I should continue and always should control is the merchandising, creative, and visionary, because nobody sees it the way I see it, and I get to that answer very quickly. Like I can look at something and within 2 seconds say it's wrong, it's rude, it's this. So I should try to have other people do it. And every time I have, all it does is create an enormous amount of work for everybody, chaos, and think, well, there's other things, right, that I shouldn't try to control because they're not, so. Yes, it's a flaw, but it's a needed flaw. So if you let go of it, you let go of that secret sauce. It's sort of like, and there's so many people I know that are like that, and you look at, why was Apple so great? It was so great because you had a man that was obsessed with it, right? And he would have 10 people working hidden to show him 10 different things for the same thing, and he'd need to see it to decide. But you need that, right? You need that hand, you need that point of view, you need that moment of craziness of whatever it is, not across everything, but across certain things. And that's another thing when people tell you, oh, you need to step aside. Well, the minute you start to step aside is when you get yourself into a lot of trouble. Because, and I've seen so many companies that were created, that had enormous potential, or bought by fronts, collapsed. Collapsed. I mean, overnight, because they wanted to get the founders out, because, they thought they could scale it better. Yes, you can, but at the end of the day, the founders are the ones that created the baby. And the baby is linked to the founder, and if they can't continue to do that, why did you buy it? So it's very funny because we're very contradictory in life. We want something and then we don't want it, It's very, very funny. And we're convinced that we can continue to do something that you cannot. It's only certain people who can do certain things. And that's okay.
I think that's absolutely true about Steve Jobs. For instance, anybody who has a Mac, if you ever notice this sort of gray screen, it has a linen texture. Steve Jobs insisted on that. There was not a solid gray texture of linen, and that's the kind of thing that makes the user experience so.
I have a question.
Sure.
Several. This is your end product. Getting there, this is our challenge as you described. And the challenge is in finding this unique thing anywhere in the world. But you need someone to do that, so you have people looking for these very unique products. Then it comes on the page. And then you need a delivery system, fulfillment.
Yeah, it's an insane business.
Pardon?
It's an insane business.
It's enormously complex.
It's very complex.
The logistics are huge. Well, that was one question. Well, I'm just amazed.
Yeah, and that's why.
I see the range of
But
products.
that's
and I
exactly why the
realize-
rules to the business were you had to have 80% pickup. So you would know you have in your warehouse the same SKUs, the same thing, people will keep buying the same things from you. And you'd have 20% newness just to kind of mask up the whole thing so that you could manage the business. Our business was the inverse, and we created the concept of magalog. So it was never predictable.
But you're creating demand, but you can't measure it. You can't
Exactly,
It's
exactly.
a total unknown.
It was a huge unknown.
It's huge.
Insane, yes.
But I have another question. The McKinsey chap, is he still with you?
No.
Okay.
And the reason is because this goes back to one of your things. So he was with me. We sold the company, and the guys who bought it during .com didn't want him in.
Oh.
So, there was so many, there's so many things like this where, and because you think that now, I sold and everybody's resume, everybody comes from Harvard, this, they work at this place and that place, and they ran this company, and oh, they all know what they're doing, and we're just a bunch of rookies that don't know what we're doing. Well, I certainly thought I was, That you just sort of give over the keys to the car. And next thing you know, the car's bagged up, and then they're delivering back to you a broken car, and they say, here, take your car. And because you're an idiot, you're an entrepreneur, you're passionate, you take back the broken car. Right? And it's like got the stuff tingling on it, ding, 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 which is all the debt that you have, and all the problems, and the 140 employees, and now you gotta fix it all, and that's not what you're good at. But you gotta do it, because you're kind of crazy and insane, and you don't know how to let go, which is another thing. It's like learning when to stop. Right, which is like a big default of entrepreneurs.
Could you give me or us a clarification as to where you are now? Are you a private company or
Yes.
a public company?
Yes.
You're
So,
private.
yes, I sold and then had to buy back my own company.
Yeah.
So it was like many years to buy it back. So I had to find a loophole, and then I had to fight, and then I had to, pay the. It was like,
Is Annex your partner?
Sorry.
Is Annex?
No.
No. Where did you grow up? You mentioned Europe.
I grew up in Geneva, Switzerland.
Eva, one question I have.
Thank you.
When you're hiring, what qualities do you look for if you hire part of your team?
I think I look for passion, tenacity. I look for a resume that's solid. And what I mean by solid is somebody who's paid their dues. I hate looking at somebody's resume and saying year, because it just seems like a bad meal, right? Like, I tried this chip, but I didn't like it. I tried that chip, and I didn't like it. I mean, I believe that. I always say that, you know, the coming comes in doing, right? Work is work. That's why it's called work. It's not called vacation, right? You're only going to get out of it what you put in. And the only way you can put in things is by investing in time, right? I'm not saying that people have to stay in places forever, but there has to be like, sort of a healthy movement to somebody's career. So I think that, I think their passion, I think their determination, I think at the end of the day how they present themselves. If they can articulately sell you, they can probably sell anybody, right? I don't mean sell like, it's not a life selling, but I think that the way you represent yourself is very important.
Other questions?
Yes.
Just if you go back into that moment when you were an analyst or whatever you're doing analytically and zoom in and just maybe share with the audience, maybe some of us feel, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here and doing something else, oh, but I have to pay my loans and pay the bills. How did you feel in what was the pull? How was it for you, or what was the defining moment when you said, no, that's I'm quitting? I don't know how to explain it. How did it go for you? Maybe we can identify.
It's funny because at the time, I didn't think about it. At the time, I didn't think about it. I was just like, I'm out of here, right? Not in a bad way. Like, I wasn't like, I'm out of here in a bad way. I was just like, I have to leave because I have to go do something. And I wasn't worried about making money. I knew I was going to be able to find a job. And that's why actually I went and kind of, concocted a plan to be called a consultant, right? I think that I really believe that there is ways to get there. And I believe that you can do a night job, you can do a day job, you can get a gig, you can do this. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you've got to do it, right? If you're staying somewhere because of the salary, you're never going to be successful.
Did you know what you wanted to do?
I never knew what I wanted to do. I didn't even know how to start this. I mean, I just kind of left and sort of like thought, oh, this and then this. And I actually didn't think I was starting a company. I started as a project. I launched my first catalog. I wasn't even incorporated. I really wasn't incorporated. I mean, like, literally, I just did it. I did it as a project, and then the project became something. So I found a way about, being, covered enough to, by this consulting thing I had. Right? Keep going back to that. But I don't think, listen, there is no compensation to risk. The only compensation to risk that there is being, how do you call it, what's the right word? Frugal and, taking opportunities and making ends meet and figuring out how to get it done. That's the only competition. There is no competition to risk. I can't tell you that there's like a safety net option that you don't know about, that I'm hiding. I'm not hiding any safety net option. I'm just telling you, it's not that bad, it's not that scary. If you have enough belief in yourself, just go do it. What's the worst thing that'll happen? It won't work for a year, it won't work for 6 months. But if you're staying where you're staying, for the check, it's a problem. It's a problem.
Yes, Mr. Over there.
I thought it was amazing how you just mentioned in a few words, and then I opened my warehouse. It just seems like such a huge production, and I mean, I actually came here really personally because I just finished my master's degree in Geneva, and I'm kind of in fashion design and art and all this stuff. And how do you balance your gut intuition of that passion you have with all the logistics? Like, you know what I mean? It just seems like that's part of your success these two polar extremes.
Well, I mean, I think that first of all, I think that, the good news with starting something from scratch is that you learn every piece of the job. Like, I was on press almost like 50% of the existence of my business. I mean, I know how to put together a production schedule. I know check the colors, and you have to do a compromise. And I know what color correcting costs, and it costs a fortune. And I know what the process takes, and how long it takes, and negotiating the pages. No, you can't charge me $350. You have to charge me $250. And no, and like you can't sleep at night. And how to get this price down. And I know every part of the process. I know what a warehouse looks like and what it works like. My first warehouse, I will tell you to this day, was called J. It was up in Amish County. They had no electricity, no water, whatever. It was a Hank family, where the city was. And what was setting up the warehouse? It was like getting all the inventory in there, labeling all the SKUs, putting it into a system at the time. It was like still very simple archaic. I had $2,000. Then the warehouse got more and more. But actually the funny thing is that part of it is actually simple. The harder part of it is what you talked about. The fact that how do you get the inventory flow? How do you manage the inventory? How do you know, like, okay, if I'm going to sell 300, if I'm going to sell 3,000, how do I order? How do I put it in? How do I, and then you got to chase the brands. And let me tell you, these brands are, as charming as they are absolutely nutty to work with. It takes them, I don't know how long, and I don't want to, the habit, senora, the fabric, it didn't come in, it hasn't come in. Dude, these guys have been waiting for like 2 months, and the sale's going to go, and we need to bank the sale. I mean, it's unbelievable. Concept of, delivery time, and now it's getting much better because you've got big players, but generally speaking, the more special, the more refined, the more unexpected, the more complicated, right? So how to balance all of that, and how to be not sitting on, so much inventory, and so how to commercialize it, how to talk about it. So there's like a lot of the business which is intense, and you can go through these huge growths, and then all of a sudden you're going to have to invest a lot to be able to take it to the next level, and then there's compromises, right? So I don't know where the story goes, but I think where the story goes is that you have to have, there's always a backside to everything. So there's always there's a head and there's a tail, right? You have to figure out who's the head and who's the tail. And I think that maybe the answer is it can be both. And understanding that you need a good partner for the other side and be butt out of it, is really important. And sometimes finding that good partner is really hard because most people can't usually work with people who are as insane as you are. Because your mind just works in a way that's really hard to understand. And to you, it's super logical, right? It's like black and white. It's like, and to them, it's like, what planet is she riding today exactly? They used to laugh,
I have two questions, actually. Have you always thought of your company as a global brand, and have you always thought globally in terms of who I'm selling to and who's making the product and who's distributing it? I guess that's one question. And then, losing my train of thought.
So the short answer is yes, it always did. Because I never thought, I'm a citizen of the world. I really consider myself a citizen of the world. I built this business actually with probably, I don't think of it, actually I hate the word global, because global means it's the opposite of local, and I don't believe in any of that, right? I believe it's one world. I believe human beings from everywhere are the same. They just have different great cultures and ideas and beautiful things and beautiful cities and things to inspire, but at the end we're the same. We breathe the same, we sleep the same, we cry the same, we have dreams, we have families, we're just filled with all this sort of magic that each one's got their own magic. And I'm a product of that. I'm sort of like what I call a minestrone with lots of beans, sort of been everywhere and thrown everywhere. And I was bringing that sensibility to America. Really what you see here is very much, these are like Disney and Rome, kind of like doing the story, whatever. But I brought that to America, so I kind of did the inverse. And I hate the fact that it says a global luxury company. The word luxury is banned in my office anyway, because I don't believe in that word, right? Luxury to me is an emotion, right? It's a beautiful thing. It could be $5 or $100, and somebody says to you, "Oh, I love your luxurious shoes. You should show them the door," right? It's not an emotion. They should say, "I love your shoes. They're so fun. They're so fabulous. They're so great." Or your house, or you, or your food, or whatever it is, So it's banned. The use of it is banned. So it shouldn't even be on the card. But anyway, at least I'm honest. because now it's called Voyager Spirit, so we don't even talk about that. And the reason we called it Voyager Spirit actually is because voyaging is a state of mind, it's not a state of being. You know, you don't have to actually physically travel to voyage, you have to be open-minded. We could be voyaging together. You know, open-minded to experiences, to ideas, to things that create layers. Those layers in life create extraordinary people. And I'm interested in that spirit of people, and that spirit of things, and that spirit of everything. And it's all the layers that we create over the life that make something unique.
I remembered my second question, which is, I noticed that on the site it says that you offer shopping services. And I was just wondering how much of your business is selling product and how much of your business is offering shopping services, and how do those two connect, and was American Express helpful in terms of shopping services? Or
Well, American Express ended in 2007 or 8 when they eradicated the whole thing. So no, because at the time they were still very different. You know, they were still very, you know. I think that, you know, we do a lot in experiencing. We partner with a lot of people. So I'd say we don't do that much in sort of taking people shopping, but we do a lot in terms of partnering with people, doing events, doing you know, setting up entire lifestyle tables, you know, doing a lot of things that go beyond, you know, a ton of like, okay, go here, go there, vacationing, you know, whole. I'd say, you know, do we actually physically go and take you? No, but we do a lot of guides, a lot of, you know, fun stuff like that.
Christina, do we have time for one more question?
Sure.
My own experience has been in architecture, where it also has enormous creativity as the first ingredient to success. Then you need operations, which is your complexity, and management. So it's sort of a troika. And I wonder, looking at you now and looking forward, how are you going to, I mean, what is your thoughts about, I found there's one very dangerous word in the design profession, and it's a three-letter word, EGO, ego, and it's created a lot of destruction in firms, because if you give recognition down, then you're going to pay better. And so there's a whole dynamic of ego, reward, building a company, having others invest in following your vision. So how would you do that, or how are you doing it? You must be doing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it. I mean, I don't think, you know, I think you get up and you try your best. I think one thing is that you have to be careful with overcompensating, right? Because the reality of it is that you can only compensate as much as a business can grow, right? And I think value that you create, and I think that falling into this idea that we're going to build a good company, which means we're going to pay big salaries and make people be a rock star. I mean, that's not a real reality, right? The real reality of it is that you could build a great business and maybe there's 2 or 3 people that help you build it, but you have to be realistic on the rest. And, you know, how you use your ego. So for me, you know, the biggest thing is, you know, I'm very realistic within my company because I've gone through some huge thunderstorms. I mean, and I've saved, you know, people from getting, you know, I've gone from like, tomorrow, basically everybody here could lose their job because somebody was going to write a check to some creative person for, I don't know how much money, you know, ego, right? So I'm on the cautious side of that. I think that how you do that is to build enough strength to then be able to really give. And that's, I guess, my dream, right? My dream is if I can be able to be successful enough to be able to actually create things that I believe in that can be really giving back, you know, 100% because I can do it. Versus trying to do it within your work environment. Because your work environment is a reality, right? It's a reality of business, you have to pay this, and that's how great businesses are built and are sustained over time. So it's a trick, but I mean, I really I felt the pain of that. And I don't know if I have the answer, by the way.
Yes.
I have one more. So if you were, let's say, just starting out now, you know, in the field of fashion, lifestyle, brand, what do you see right now that's super exciting? What blows your mind right now and you think is just so cool?
Really good question. I think that it's flat. Not that there isn't cool things out there. There's a lot of cool things out there, but I think we're living in a world, and don't take this wrong, because this to me is opportunity, right? Me tooism, right? We're living in a world where everybody feels that they have to offer every single thing at every price point. That instead of having, I think that there's a bit of a problem, right? So you have these great talented fashion designers that believe that in order to be great talented fashion designers, apart from the ones that are really successful, they have to be very complicated and egocentric and create this very noble fashion, right? But noble fashion that women don't want to wear. And then the magazines feel like in order for them to be interesting, they have to be edgy and make women look like creeps and ugly and attractive and seductive, right? I think. I'm not inspired by the magazines. I don't mean it in a bad way, but when's the last time you saw a beautiful woman in a beautiful dress? And then you've got the big guys, right? The Zaras and the H&M and Topshops on. These guys are doing a fantastic job. And why are they doing a fantastic job? Because they're very reactive. They're looking at the pulse, they look what's happening, and they're pumping it out. So what's in the middle of all this? So, I don't know. I mean, it would be a great brainstorming session, because I thought about it a lot. To the point where I'm kind of like, I shouldn't say this, but, I mean, I believe that great fashion becomes, good fashion becomes great style. I believe in style, I don't believe in fashion. I believe that style stands over time, and it drives a lot of fashion. Fashion becomes circular, right? People talk about like green, military green, well, it's been around for however many years. Not all created in X amount. You could go through every big trend, and it takes moments, and it keeps coming back, It's just done a little bit differently. It's just twisted, right? So I don't know. I don't know what people want today, and I think you need to figure out what they want, and you need to figure out how to surprise and delight them, and how to get them to sort of think, I actually really want this. I don't have to wait for it to go at 80% off, and who cares if I get it or not? Because at the end of the day, not that interesting. So what's more interesting? Architecture, art, furniture, home, design. I don't mean it in a bad way, and I hate saying this because it's the business I come from, right? But it's just stuff. And where is the courage to break out of the stuff, right? There are people doing it, don't get me wrong. But it's just, how to say it? I think I've said enough.
Well, Eva, this has been so inspirational.
Thank
You
you.
are, this has been a great talk, and I want to invite everybody to continue the conversation over some wonderful refreshments. And again, thank you.
Thank you.